Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Sad Dad Games podcast. This is another episode of Eric's Indie Corner, where we take a minute to talk about some of my favorite indie games. I use it as a shameless platform to talk about some of my favorite games, whether you guys want me to or not. So today, I'm going to be your host, Eric, and joining me,
I'm Shan.
I'm Tucker.
And I'm Emmerly.
All right. Welcome, everybody. And so today's game is a little bit interesting because I don't know if it's technically an indie game, but it feels like an indie game, and it was developed by a smaller studio. So I'm going to go ahead and give it the official Eric stamp of approval as an honorary indie game. So today we are talking about Sonic Mania, which is developed by Headcanon Games and is a 2D speed-based platformer. For any of you familiar with like the Sonic the Hedgehog games for the Sega Genesis and Sega CD, Sonic Mania is you probably have already played Sonic Mania and you don't need to hear me talk about it. But if you're familiar with those games, it's very, very similar to that. So, and it was originally released on August 15th, 2017. And we are going to break it down into a couple of categories. We're going to talk a little bit about the story, then we're going to talk about gameplay, and then visuals and sound, and just give you a little bit of an idea of, you know, what I think about those things and what we all think about those things, and just have a good time talking about good games.
And things.
So, in typical Sonic fashion, the story is not a big deal and is mostly pretty ridiculous. You start off on Angel Island, as many Sonic games do. Oh, actually, I looked it up. There's more lore than I expected. So I'm going to read this thing that I got off of the wiki because it just sets the stage for the very deep and intricate Sonic lore. Taking place after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Robotnik and his robot goons get the Phantom Ruby and use its power to send the trio back in time and space to visit some old areas and newer areas. And Sonic and friends have to stop him. So.
Do you think that like they've ever written the story before starting the game, or is it like something that they do after they've created the stages?
I think that they make it's what I like to call the Michael Bay method of filmmaking, is they do all of the set pieces first and then they say, how can we cobble this into a cohesive game, sort of. Because the story is
putting
silly.
the explosions.
Yeah, where do we put the explosions? Story is secondary. My name is Michael Bay. For some reason, people let me make movies. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I definitely get the sense of like it has a very old school sensibility to it, where it's like the story is there, but it's, you know, collect the MacGuffins, stop Robotnik, and that's the end. I stopped talking because that's the end.
Yeah. This is like Thanos getting his Infinity Gauntlet.
It's exactly like that. You collect the gems and you put them in the Infinity Gauntlet, and then Knuckles snaps his fingers.
So is that every Sonic game after Sonic Adventures is just collecting stones and stopping Dr. Robotnik from collecting stones?
And stopping. And you trade the stones back and forth sometimes, and sometimes he gets them, and sometimes you get them, and yeah. What I want to know,
the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Marvel Cinematic Universe, creatively bankrupt. They stole all of their ideas from Sonic the Hedgehog.
You know, it's literally a shot-for-shot remake.
It's a shot-for-shot remake. So, but this is another one of those games where gameplay is king. It's just kind of like the story doesn't matter. It's a very retro-inspired game, and so it's like, who cares? Robotnik is up to some shenanigans. Let's play as some really fast woodland creatures and stop him, you know? Definitely not a complex story. But gameplay is, like I said, for those of you who have ever played an old school Sonic game, it will feel very similar to that. But much like a lot of I feel like we're getting a big renaissance of retro inspired games, or like spiritual successors to things. And so when you play games like that and that remind you of older like games that you played when you were a kid, I feel like Sonic Mania does that. It reminds you of the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD, or the Sega Saturn like Sonic games of old. But when you're actually playing it, it is quite a bit more refined, and you know, all of the rough edges are kind of smoothed out, and so it's a much smoother experience than going back and actually playing those older games. So really, really enjoyable there. But yeah, typical Sonic fare. There's lots of windy paths and loop-de-loops, and you run really fast, and you know, it's a Sonic game. I I don't know what else to say besides that.
Do you ever, like, when you're playing a Sonic game, do you actually feel like you know what you're doing? Or are you just going really fast and you're like, this is kind of fun, but I'm on rails and I don't know what I'm doing?
I just like running. That's what it is.
I don't know if you believe this, but I can run like the wind blows.
That's their inspiration, and that's all this game needs to be. Is I just like to run.
I just
I
like
wanna go
running.
fast.
Gotta go. I gotta run.
Hashtag gotta go fast.
Gotta go fast. That's what it is.
Gotta go fast. Did you guys ever watch the I think it was on like what was it called before the CW, like WB30, for all of those kids who didn't have cable, and they had like that Sonic the Hedgehog anime on there, and gotta go fast, Sonic, and he'd like, it was all very like, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog, and he just every other word was gotta go fast.
Actors.
Yeah, it was like a step above PBS, but 16 steps below Cartoon Network.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. Not nearly on the same level.
I can't believe people were paid actual money to like act like that at one time, and they were famous for having done so.
What was the in the old like 90s Sonic cartoon, Jaleel White, the guy that played Steve Urkel, he did the voice of Sonic for a minute, and it was very much the like, hey, I'm Sonic, like
did I do that?
Did I do that?
Exactly.
Stomping on Eggman's head.
It was, you didn't realize it as a kid, but then you listen to it now and you're like, that's Urkel the Hedgehog. Like
I want nothing but a Sonic game that is just voiced over with Urkel lines now.
I am positive that there is a fan mod of that already exists somewhere. So your dream is probably already a reality. So something that I feel like Sonic Mania does really well, that some of the best of the old 2D Sonic games did really well, is that it has this kind of like multi-layered level design where if you kind of know what you're doing and have the paths memorized, there's kind of an upper path, a medium path, and a lower path that at different points of the level intersect and overlap. And the upper path is generally faster but more challenging to like stay on that path and really maintain that speed, and then the middle path is somewhere in the middle, and the lower path is easier to navigate with less interruptions but is a little bit more of a plodding pace. And so I think that's for me the hallmark of a really good 2D Sonic level design, is those different paths that intersect and overlap, so that if because obviously Sonic games are really big for people who enjoy speedrunning and, going through games quickly for, gotta go fast. And so that's my Sonic. He's got a cold. And so I think that having those different pathways and people who can really just blast through these levels really fast, I think that Sonic games are designed for that very well. And Sonic Mania does a really good job at highlighting that style of game design and level layout.
I'm not super familiar with actual Sonic gameplay. Like, I know of it, but I don't know the details of it. So can you explain for someone like me how these levels work? Is it like Donkey Kong and like Mario where you have to go and collect things and, like I know there's rings. I don't know what the rings are. Is that used as like currency? I don't understand.
So the rings are actually what I think is one of the best designed health systems in video games. You pick up rings and you can have as many rings as you want. If you get 100 rings, then you get a 1-up. But if you get hit by something, you drop all of your rings. And so when you get hit, you have this kind of frantic moment where you're trying to gather and pick up all of your rings. And whatever you can pick back up is how many rings you have. And then if you get hit again. So every time you get hit, you're like, it gets to this point where maybe you're in a boss battle or something and you have one ring left and you get hit and you're just frantically running back to try to get that one ring before it disappears. And it's I think a smart,
The One Ring.
The One Ring to rule them all.
My precious.
It's exactly
Sonic,
like that.
Sonic.
The Sonic games are just based on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
We've established this now.
Yes.
So I think you're collecting those rings because it's like your health system. But yeah, Sonic games are all about moving fast. You can run really fast. You can roll up in a ball. There's lots of slopes and slants and loop-de-loops. And And so it's about moving fast and memorizing enemy placement so that you can hit them or, jump around them, and just to maintaining that momentum. But it's also really unique in its style because it has this weightiness and momentum to games, to the character movement that not a lot of games have. Example, Donkey Kong and Mario, if you're standing here and you push jump without pushing any other buttons, you jump straight up. But Sonic, if you're standing on a slant and you jump, he'll like jump backwards because he's standing on a slant, and that's the way that his jumping motion and his inertia would take him. And so if you slow down, it can become quite a bit more difficult to maneuver and jump the way that you want to, as opposed to if you keep moving quickly. So it really incentivizes you to do your best to try to learn the level layouts and keep moving, because Sonic doesn't feel very good to control when he's moving slowly, but he feels great to control when he's moving quickly. So, yeah. And then the main goal of every level is to just get from point A to point B. You start here, and the end of the level is here. And usually each stage has 2 acts. There's Act 1, and then at the end of Act 2 there is a boss battle, and then you move on to the next area of the game. That's the general structure of a Sonic game and of Sonic Mania. One of the things I like also a lot about Sonic Mania is they reuse some of the old level designs. So the really popular levels, Green Hill Zone, Hydro City, Chemical Plant Zone, ones that we played in like the Sega Genesis era of games, those are all there, but they have a lot of new zones as well. Like Studiopolis Zone is one of my favorites. It's like a big movie studio with a boppin' soundtrack. And so it's a good mix of like old nostalgia with a bunch of new levels as well. So Sonic Mania walks this tightrope of feeling nostalgic but fresh at the same time. So really, plaudits for that.
Yeah, it has does literally every Sonic game have a Green Hill Zone? Like, have they ever tried to make a Sonic game without one?
Funny you should say that. I recently started playing Sonic Superstars, and it does not have a Green Hill Zone. It starts off in like Bridge City Zone.
That's
or
probably
like,
why it sucks.
It does suck. Sonic Superstars sucks. We were just talking about this before the call. I started playing Sonic Superstars recently, and I hate it, and it's a bummer. So don't play Sonic Superstars. It bums. Play Sonic Mania. It's great.
Because
I guess that's the secret. If you don't have a Green Hill Zone, then it's a bad Sonic game.
Yeah.
Sonic Forces, I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a Green Hill Zone. Lots of people hate Sonic Forces, but I haven't played that one. For all of the Sonic fans, I don't know from firsthand experience whether or not Sonic Forces is good or not. But Shan, you heard it here. Shan says the special ingredient for Sonic games is Green Hill Zone.
Well, and a slapping soundtrack, which everybody knows that.
Yeah, you got to have a slapping soundtrack for a Sonic game. So let me see. Let me look at my notes here. Oh yeah, so we also get some cool bonus levels back from earlier games. When you reach a checkpoint, you can get a bonus level where you do the collect the blue orbs thing, where it's like a big circular grid, and you have to move around and collect all the blue orbs. And if they all turn red and you bump into a red one, you lose. But lots of little mini games like that. You also have a fun little running mini game where you have to catch all the Chaos Emeralds. And in each stage, there's several places where like a ring is hidden, like a big ring. And if you find the big ring, then it takes you to a special stage where you can find the Chaos Emeralds. And that secret stage is fun. You just run around really fast in like a 3D environment and try to catch up to the Chaos Emerald. So special stages are back and they're in full force. Sonic Mania picks some of the better special stages. They don't do the pinball ones or the casino ones that, in my opinion, aren't quite as strong. So solid special stage selection. Also, there is a DLC pack called Sonic Mania Plus that includes 2 new playable characters. Everybody's fan favorites. Say it with me. Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel. Everyone's favorite
course.
Sonic characters.
I was going to go with Tails, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's obviously Aaron the Armadillo.
Aaron the Armadillo. There you go. No, so actually, the base game you can play as Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails, but then they include Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel as DLC, and they're present. They're fine. The trio of like Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails are way more fun to play as. So, yeah, in my opinion.
What are
maybe
the
there's some
characters?
big Ray the Flying Squirrel fans that I don't know about, but
because like when I was watching the cartoon as a kid, it's like, oh, well, obviously Tails is the coolest. He's got like he's hip, he's chill, and like I dig his vibes. But like then you play the games and you're like, well, holy shit, Knuckles is amazing, and this
Knucks
Echidna,
forever.
like,
Yeah.
Knucks forever, right?
Yeah.
But then
Knucks
you get to the
forever.
GameCube era and you're like, oh my god, like what is his name? Shadow. He's a badass.
Shadow rules, you guys.
Shadow rules. And
I
so
was
like
going
this,
through an emo phase with Shadow, and I just
Yeah.
I'm
married
Shadow
that
the
perfectly.
Hedgehog. I shoot guns, and I swear sometimes. Yeah.
he's just like a huge ripoff. He's just like dark mode Sonic, right? Like, but like, Sonic is just like this franchise of just like these incredible, cool characters. They're all just like cool characters. Nobody is less cool than the others, other than like Amy and I don't
Charmy
I
the
can't even-
effing bee. Screw that guy. In the comments, who's your favorite Sonic character? And if it's Charmy the bee, you're not invited to future
Go
episodes.
for yourself.
Mine is Aaron the Armadillo.
Aaron the
How does he stack up in coolness factor?
It's Tucker's fictional. It's his. What's the when you make up a character? Oh, it's like original characters, OCs. That's Tucker's OC is Aaron the Armadillo. It's his original character. He's got lots of sketchbooks full of him in Aaron the Armadillo's strong embrace, and
It's a mix between Arthur and Sonic.
there it is.
Aaron the Armadillo.
Oh, I love it. Great. So moving on a little bit here, we talked a little bit earlier about the sound design. So now we're going to talk about visuals and sound. Visuals, if you've played an older Sonic game on like the Sega Genesis or the Sega CD, you get a sense of what Sonic Mania looks like. They use pixel art to the very reminiscent of those older games, but again, polished a little bit more. The animations are a little bit smoother. Some of the animations have more frames or have been replaced with more accurate animation work for some of the transitions, things like that. So animation work is on the whole is quite a bit improved. Even little things like when you are in the older games, when you go up on a slope, Sonic can be like at a normal angle, or then at a 45-degree angle, or at a 90 angle. He rotates like on those like at 45-degree increments. But in Sonic Mania, the rotations are much smoother. So when you're going around loops or up and down slopes, it doesn't look so like it's ratcheting between different keyframes. It's a lot smoother. So animation and visuals are really great. There are a few zones in this game that are just really great pixel art. The one critique I give the visuals is that, and this is across all Sonic games, this is more of a personal preference thing than like an actual critique, but sometimes Sonic games can be very visually busy, and it can make it a little hard to distinguish foreground and background and see enemies coming, because they are so densely designed that you can get kind of lost in the details.
It's all like equally saturated and vibrant.
Yeah. So small critique, but it's kind of just, and I don't know if this is a good reason, but that's just sort of what Sonic games are. They are very saturated with lots of detailed pixel art. And so it's definitely not bad. And like, it's not bad enough to really ruin my enjoyment of the game, but it is something that I feel like could be tidied up just a smidge in future Sonic games. But yeah. And then talking about the soundtrack for Sonic Mania rules. It is again composed by T. Lopes, my new favorite guy. I love basically every soundtrack that he works on. He is incredible. He did the soundtrack for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge that we talked about earlier. He's done guest tracks on some other games that the episode might not have aired yet, but T. Lopes is great. He does lots of good music for video games. Does great work on the Sonic Mania, really punchy soundtracks. Does a good job at making the songs feel retro, but also new and fresh. Special shout out to Studiopolis Zone and the Metallic Madness Zone. Those songs slap. They're awesome. Like, I pop in my headphones and I like to listen to it while I work. It's just great soundtrack. It's good stuff.
Eric is a
Was
soundtrack
that-
core. I have never heard him say that there's a soundtrack he wouldn't listen to while he
Sonic Superstars. Friggin' Sonic Superstars. That's a poop soundtrack.
Okay, well, he would still listen to it while he works. So
I can listen to it while I work. I will say though that on Sonic Superstars, T-Lopes did come in and do a few songs for Sonic Superstars, and those ones are pretty good. But it's a really, that soundtrack is a really mixed bag. But Shan's right. I am a little bit of a soundtrack whore. I just like video game music. All right. Great. So one of, I guess, kind of a fun fact to end on, one of the reasons why I consider Sonic Mania to be an indie game is because it is Sonic, which is a huge IP and, published by Sega, which is a big publisher, but it was developed by a very small studio, and was basically it was a fan-made project made by mostly one guy who made a mod of this game, of an existing Sonic game, and brought it to Sega and was like, hey, look at how much better I can make Sonic games. And then they let him have a small team and let him make his own 2D Sonic game. And that's what Sonic Mania is. And it's just really shows how great 2D Sonic can be when you let someone who's passionate about it work on it. And so Sonic Mania is I feel like a passion project, which I think is what indie games really are at their core, is they're passionate people making things that they're passionate about. So
yeah, we give a lot of deference to Sonic games because we want them to be good, but has there ever been have we ever felt like there was a lot of passion in a Sonic game that has made the difference in making it an incredible game? I feel like there's a lot of passion in parts of the game, like the soundtrack, or in some parts of the design, and so we just give it we decide parts of the game are perfect or parts of the game are worth playing. And so it sounds like this person was passionate about what a Sonic game could be, and he brought it all together.
I agree with that. And again, I Sonic Mania is not a perfect game. It has some faults, but I think that it's probably, in Eric's humble opinion, I think it's my favorite 2D Sonic game. It really nails that feeling and is better than most of the original Sonic games, probably all of them. It's really solid, really good stuff. I did want to point out one small complaint that I had, is that live, the life system, has no business being in a video game that's not trying to steal my quarters. I am not a fan of the live system. I don't that's the only thing that I didn't like about Sonic Mania, is that I don't like how the live system, because if you get through a long stage and you run out of time, because each stage has a 10-minute time limit, you run out of time and then you die and you're out of lives, then you have to start the whole zone over again, not just the level, not just the boss battle, because you ran out of lives. I don't love that. It's an archaic game design ideology that doesn't belong in modern games.
Yeah. The first time, when I played Mario Odyssey on the Switch, and the first time you die and it takes away 10 coins, I was like, oh,
there's no repercussions.
I was like, oh,
I could do anything.
I had never considered that you could design a game like that. Okay, I love that. Let's do more games like that. Let's remake every game and put that in there. Why did nobody think about that for 20 years?
If you buy the game and you have it at your home, it's not trying to take your quarters. Why are there lives here?
It's just nobody thought about that.
Yep. Innovating by not really innovating. So that's, like I said, my one small complaint, but Sonic Mania gets a solid recommend for me. Really, really enjoy most everything about this game. Just a good old Sonic-y time. If you like Sonic games, if you like old school Sega Genesis Sonic games, you've probably already played Sonic Mania, but if for some reason you like those old games and haven't played this one, definitely check it out. It's good stuff. All right, Sonic Mania will run you probably about 3 to 5 hours for a single playthrough, but there's lots of characters. If you want to play through multiple times, that's a good time. Like I said, lots of speedrunning. People love speedrunning Sonic games. So if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely can pad that runtime by quite a bit. It's a really good one to just kind of pick up and play for little bits of time. So
I had a question, right? Because I tried playing as other characters, as Tails and stuff. Did you think that like you could get the same quality of experience playing the same levels as other characters, or did you just find that it was like game breaking for fun?
It's like here's what I do when I play 2D Sonic games is I always play through as Sonic all the way through first, because I feel like that's what the games are designed for. They're designed for Sonic. And so I feel like that's kind of the purest level design. But then particularly Tails is just like it just kind of breaks the game. Do whatever you want, go wherever you want, doesn't matter. He's just as fast as Sonic and he can fly.
Like, it reminded me of, like, when I first discovered that you could play N64 games with, like, an emulator and you could put in cheat codes. And I played, like, Banjo-Kazooie, and I put in, like, you could, like, unlock the Z-axis and you could just, like, make Banjo fly in the air. And I was like, and he could just, like, kind of, like, float up into Spiral Mountain. I was like, well, this isn't fun.
Yeah. I thought this was going to be really fun, and it's not fun.
Yeah, I was like, this kind of breaks the entire game. Like, there's no challenge, but okay.
Yeah. So there is definitely a little bit of that. But I find the most fun usually playing as Sonic. But also, I really like Knuckles because I feel like it's a good balance of like breaking the game a little bit, but not too much. Because Knuckles can climb up walls, but he can't just straight up fly. So it's like, oh no, I missed that thing. I want to go back. Where normally as Sonic, you wouldn't be able to jump quite high enough. But as Knuckles, you can climb up. But it's not giving you like ultimate, just do whatever you want that you get with Tails. So I'm a big Knuckles fan in side-scrolling Sonic games.
Yeah, they could have at least like put like more aerial combat or some kind
something.
of obstacles.
Yeah. More bad guys in the air. Yeah, something to dodge. Literally
so
anything.
Not Tails, but Knuckles. Yes, go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you play as Aaron?
Yeah, Aaron the Armadillo, Tucker's favorite Sonic character. So, here's a good thing to end on. If you want to have a fun game with the internet that is potentially super, maybe gross, type in your first name and then the Hedgehog, and I promise you, someone has made a fan character of that thing. And there will be illustrations, and they're usually funny and sometimes gross. So have a good time with that.
Doing it live right now.
Yeah, do it live. Everyone look up Tucker the Hedgehog. What does Tucker the Hedgehog look like? Describe it for us in great
detail.
detail.
I feel like I brought this up. What is the name of that rule on the internet where, like, if it exists, there is like a porn version of it? There's like a rule something.
The rule applies for Sonic as well. If it exists, there is a Sonic fan art of it.
Name of the rule of the internet.
Yeah, because I know there's TTP.
Rule 34. If it 34. Exists or it can be imagined, there is internet porn
or it can be imagined. So literally anything.
Rule 34. This is an important rule to know.
Yeah. What's the Sonic rule? Like Rule 35? Yeah. So Tucker, you looked up your Sonic persona, Tucker the Hedgehog. Yeah. What describe it for us? What's Tucker the Hedgehog like?
While you're pulling that up, there's a Washington Post article about what I brought up.
Of course there is.
So the one that I feel like is the most polished is he's standing up, has a death mullet, and is wearing green and black gloves.
I dig it. I just looked up Eric the Hedgehog. It looks like a green hedgehog with silver highlights and quills pointing slightly downwards. And he's laying kind of like this with a sort of come hither look. So Eric the Hedgehog is slightly sexy.
Nice. Shan the Hedgehog is just like, did you mean Shadow the Hedgehog?
Yeah.
No, well, I have a Shan the Hedgehog by
Did
Andre
you mean
the
Shadow, the
Cat
much cooler hedgehog?
No, I have one.
Let's hear it. What's Shan the Hedgehog like?
Shan the Hedgehog, he does look like Shadow. He has green eyes. He has on one of his hands, he has like a fire. He's wielding a fireball.
You have superpowers.
Yeah, and he has a blue glove on his left hand, and he's like this awful pixel art. Like,
I just
like
pulled
we're
it up.
talking like 90s era.
I just looked it up. It looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint. I bet you anything.
Yeah,
would do
Microsoft
that.
Paint. Yeah, that's
This
exactly
was
what
made
it
in
is.
Microsoft Paint with the line tool. I promise you that's how that happened.
It is glorious to look at. I love Microsoft Paint era art. We need to bring it back.
How much work is it for Emerly to put these pictures up? Can we save these pictures and send them to Emerly? Is it possible for her to put these up while we're describing them? Because I want that.
It should be possible.
We're going to do that. Okay, so for all of you watching, as we were describing them, hopefully there were pictures on the screen of our Sonic the Hedgehog personas.
That should fall under fair use. So
Yeah.
We'll credit the artists.
So screen save those images, send them to Emerly. Let's make it happen.
All right.
All right, everybody. This has been a great episode. I had a great time talking about Sonic Mania. You can find Sonic Mania on Windows, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, iOS, and Android, and it's $19.99 for the base game and $4.99 for all of the Plus content. If you really have to play as Mighty the Armadillo, that's how you can do that. And yeah, had a great time talking with all of you. Thanks, everybody, for indulging me and letting me talk about my favorite indie games. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Yep, bye.
Bye.
Outro. Bleepy doof, bleepity, bloopity blow.